Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
All right, good morning. We are here today on Coffee with Democrats with a very special guest, Sam Grimaldo. I would butcher your middle name, your full name, I should say. So forgive me for that, and I'm going to turn it over to you to make that introduction absolutely perfect.
No problem, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, my full name is Sam Wargin Grimaldo, two last names. My paternal last name, Wargin, and then my maternal last name, Grimaldo. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We do have some housekeeping that we do need to talk about. For those people who are watching this, please share this on your social media, on your emails, with your neighbors. Get this information out. Sam is going to be such a great addition to the Democratic Party and to our legislature. We really need to have more people like him. So again, as people who watch this, please take the responsibility to share this. That's why this is so important. We're going to have this on Twitter Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. So you're going to be able to take any one of those three platforms and share that with as many people as you want. So on YouTube Live, it's at Coffee with Democrats 7998. On Facebook Live, just look us up on Coffee with Democrats. That's probably the easiest way to do it. We've got a big long link on the Facebook side. I won't bore you with all that, but again, Facebook Live, just go to Coffee with Democrats. And then on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it, it's at Coffee with Dems. They shorted us. They wouldn't let us put Democrats in there. So it's just at Coffee with Dems, all one word. So thank you for coming on Coffee with Democrats. As always, every single time we have these conversations, this is Coffee with Democrats. So we got to talk about coffee. We got to talk about your favorite morning drink, whether it be coffee or a coffee substitute or an energy drink or water, whatever. Tell us a little bit about Sam. When you first get up in the morning, you're getting around. What's your favorite morning beverage?
Yeah, so I guess I'm a little bit of an outlier here. My morning beverage of choice is just water.
Okay.
Right? But I do like to frequent coffee shops. It's a great place to meet people. I love the aroma and ritual of coffee. I wish it agreed with my stomach, but it doesn't. So when I go to a coffee shop, I choose a chai latte, usually with almond milk. So
great. Well, I ended just having to give you a little story. My background, I spent 43 years in the railroad industry, and I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was working very long hours, sometimes 24-hour shifts. So coffee was my friend, but I hated the taste of coffee. I just liked the effects of it. So I would always take coffee, and I would always it never tasted like coffee when I'm done with it because I'd butcher it. I would add so much cream and sweetener. I never added sugar, but I always added sweetener of some kind, just again, to try to break up to me, coffee was always bitter, but I'd still do it today, even though I'm not working for the railroad anymore. I still have my morning coffee. It's a McCafe pod that we buy from the store, and it's just that same old style stuff that I just grew up with. And that's why we got started with Coffee with Democrats, because I'm so used to having that flavor, going to the coffee shop, buying the coffee, and then sitting down with friends over in the corner, and friends from all backgrounds, whether it be racial, whether it be political, religious, whatever. And we would just argue and tear each other apart, and we would solve the world's issues. And that's what I loved about, having that coffee shop environment. And that's why we do Coffee with Democrats. So I'm going to save your voice just for a little bit, because I want to introduce you, and I want to introduce you properly. Sam he is running for Oklahoma Senate District 46. As a senator, it's going to be important that we have somebody with his background, with his intelligence and experience and education. Sam was born and raised in this district, in District 46 in Oklahoma City. His life experience has provided him with a deep understanding of what the people of Central Oklahoma need from our elected officials. We need them to speak up against radical ideology being masked as political discourse, and we need pragmatic approaches to getting common sense legislation passed. We need to ensure that the services meant to benefit all of us, public education, healthcare infrastructure, criminal justice reform, housing, are fully funded and supported by our government. Plainly put, we need accountability in our state government and a willingness to listen to the people who make up our great state. What an awesome introduction. I think that's just so amazing. And again, that just goes to, I go through, and I've got more to read here, but I'm going to spare you all the information on that. You're highly educated with bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Central Oklahoma. You've got a Juris Doctorate. You've been a teacher. You've got so many things, and we're going to let you talk about your biography here for just a little bit. But man, I tell you, I'm so impressed with your background and what you're going to bring to the Senate for Oklahoma. So again, thanks and welcome to Coffee with Democrats. And we're going to get into it and just kind of start talking about you, because that's the most important thing that people want to know about. Who are you? And so tell us a little bit more about your biography, how you grew up, where you grew up, in your educational pursuits.
Yeah, so I'm coming to you live from my living room here in South Oklahoma City, in the Capitol Hill district, which is where my family has lived since I was 5 years old, which takes us back to 1992. Prior to that, when I was born, my family lived in the Schuyler neighborhood, which is just south of the river from where the Boathouse district is, the River Sports district. And so I'm very tied to South Oklahoma City. I come from a multicultural family. My father, I believe, has European ancestry from Chicago. He made his way to Oklahoma and met my mother, who had recently immigrated here from Mexico. So I definitely have that experience of living in both cultures, but having been raised and currently living in South Oklahoma City, which has become a largely Latino hub in Oklahoma City. It's still a multicultural place, still a multicultural part of the city, but I think a lot of the business signs you see out here will be in English and Spanish. And so that's really painted the story of my life. I went to school down here on the south side, just a few blocks from where I am right now at Lee Elementary. And then for middle school and high school, I attended class in SAS. So which I think is still probably the most diverse school in all of Oklahoma. And so you get exposed to a lot of different realities there. I made friends with people I never thought I would have met prior to that. Friends from wealthy, affluent backgrounds, and going to their houses for birthday parties and sleepovers was, an awe-inspiring experience for me as a kid from a working class family here in South Oklahoma City. And I'm one of 5 kids, so I was very much used to a crowded house. My father was a maintenance mechanic for Trinity Railroad Industries. And then my mother worked the assembly line for Carlisle Foods until she retired, but she always worked kind of those assembly line work or jobs. At one point, she was the lunch lady at my elementary school. So very much humble beginnings. And, I still try to stay as rooted in that and remember that as much as I can as I progress through, whether it's higher education or currently practicing law and then, running for state senate. I want to make sure that I'm bringing those experiences, that background, that respect for my upbringing with me.
So you talked about where you were raised at. Let's talk about your educational pursuits. So one of the things in Oklahoma we always got to talk about, and I don't know whether maybe it's probably a stupid thing to talk about. We always talk about sports and how kids develop themselves during sports. But did you have any sports background coming out of high school?
Not so much in high school, but in middle school, I played soccer. I'm a member of the 2001 All-City Soccer Championship team, the Classen Comets. which was an interesting event because we played my homeschool team, which was or middle school at the time. And so it was kind of this hometown, or for me, a kind of a conflicting experience where, actually I have a twin sister who attended our homeschool. So she was at Jackson Middle School and I was playing for class. And so a bit of a house divided in that event. But yeah, I mean, I played soccer through middle school. I ran cross country in high school, but I focused more on visual art because at Classen you can declare a major. And so that was kind of
Oh,
more of my
excellent.
by the
Excellent.
time I got to high school age.
So after graduation, what did you decide to do as an adult? I mean, I went out and got a job first. Instead of pursuing education. And I can't say that that was the wrong thing. It was just it's just what I did. But I know a lot of people will go directly into education. Tell us a little bit about your transition from the K through 12 and what you did after that.
Yeah. So Classen School of Advanced Studies is very much known as a college preparatory school. And
Okay.
so we were all very encouraged and prepared to go to school, to college. And so I ended up going, I only made it one semester, but I went to a private liberal arts school out in Salt Lake City because at the time, Oklahoma City still hadn't really developed into what it is now. And kind of the pervading notion was to get out of state and go get an education, maybe someday come back. And so that was my idea. And I went out there on a full tuition scholarship, and it wasn't the place for me, experiencing culture shock. I had been exposed to, like I said, a bit more of what it's like to be around affluent people, but that was just, a private
Yeah.
liberal arts school where, the biggest interest was skiing and snowboarding. It just wasn't, it didn't mesh well with my background of growing up in South Oklahoma City. So I dropped out. I actually had a really tattered experience in higher education. I did one semester, I dropped out, took a year off, worked, moved back to Oklahoma. And then I decided to go back to school at OU. And so I did 2 semesters there, and was still studying studio art before I realized that, wow, without a scholarship, without, having to work my way through it, I don't know if I want to risk it all on, a career or a potential career in the arts. And so I dropped out again. And I took another year off and worked and thought about what I really wanted to do. And I was really, I still wanted to stay within kind of the arts realm. And I thought back to my experience at Classen and how I felt my life was more enriched by my exposure to not just visual art, but performing arts. And so my dream back then was to start a community art center here in South Oklahoma City to help other kids with similar backgrounds to mine get exposed to that. And so I decided to go to school at UCO for sociology with a focus in human services, which is kind of the path a social worker might take. And to me, that made the most sense. It was like, I want to do community work. I want to be educated in that. And so I went down that path. And it took me 6.5 years, but I finally graduated from college with my undergraduate degree in December of 2012.
Well, and I
Uh,
can't, I never disparage anybody on their education and how they get it, because it took me, let me see, it took me 30 years after graduating high school to get my bachelor's degree.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's a great story. Yeah. No, I'm not embarrassed or shamed about it at all. I
no,
love to tell
ab-
that, especially, after, so, I've worked in a lot of community and youth programming. Like you mentioned earlier, I was a high school teacher. And so I share this story with pride. I say, it doesn't have to look like everybody else. You don't have to be in and out of there in 4 years. You take
right,
whatever time you need, take whatever path is meant for you. And as long as you stick with it and you meet your goals, it doesn't matter how you get there.
right. And you're always building your book of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing that you take with you everywhere you go. So you graduated with a bachelor's degree and you decided to become a teacher. Where did you first teach at?
Yeah, so like I said, I worked in youth and community programs. My first job was actually at the Latino Community Development Agency, first job out of college, and I was the coordinator of youth and community programs there. And then I made my way into the education realm. I worked for UCO for a little bit for their college prep program under Gear Up grant. And then I switched over to OKCPS, and I was a teacher at US Grant High School here in South Oklahoma City. I taught English language development, which previously was referred to as English as a second language, or ESL. And so I taught multiple levels of English learners, from newcomers who had just recently immigrated to the United States and didn't know any English, to what are referred to as long-term English learners, who end up being kids who grew up probably understanding and speaking English just fine, but they're testing for one of the English proficiency tests made it to where they had to continue taking that class if they weren't scoring proficient on it. So I saw a lot of, I saw a lot of great things in education. I was very much rewarded by the work I did with my students. You see some of the structural issues that can impact them and affect them, especially in the kind of area that I was teaching in. Like I said, some with them not being able to pass an English proficiency test, they were essentially forced to take a remedial course. And I think that can kind of lead to apathy among high school students, where they're not, it kind of diminishes their interest in education, which I think was unfortunate. But I tried my best, and I think I put in a great 3 years before I decided that law school was calling my name, and that I still wanted to give back to my community. And so I thought that would be a great next step, is studying the law. When I was a teacher, I saw how different areas of the law impacted my students and their families. You have education policy. Our state legislator is the one who determines the funding formula and distributions among our school districts. You have our state board of education that determines what are the rules that guide our school systems and our school districts within the state. And then on the other ends, you have labor laws that impact their parents and our students when they get into the workforce. Our criminal legal system, which some of our kids get caught up in, and how that might impact them and their educational opportunities going forward. So a lot of different areas I thought kind of compelled me to seek further education in a different way in which to provide and contribute to my community.
And that's such a great story. And again, you did achieve getting your bachelor's degree. You became a teacher. You were giving back to the community, and you saw a calling to become an attorney. So where did you go to law school at?
I went to OU Law, down in Norman. So I commuted from here in South Oklahoma City down to Norman for 3 years, and I was there. It was an interesting first year because I started in the fall of 2019, and then of course the pandemic was my second semester of law school.
Right.
So the second half of my first year was all online, and so was the first semester of my second year, or the majority online. But when you're motivated by something that has such a compelling pull on you, whether it's giving back to your community. The other thing I don't know if I mentioned was the impact of the teacher walkout on me. Right. So I was a teacher during the 2018 walkout. And again, you see how lawmakers in our state legislature can impact the quality of education that our students receive, the quality of services that their families can access. And so with that type of background, with that type of motivating factor, you pull through and you want to get the most out of your education, whether it's in the middle of a pandemic or not.
Right. So you did go back to OU Law, and you graduated from OU Law. You're now practicing as an attorney. What is your practice basically? What do you specialize? Is it family law or criminal law?
Yeah, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I handle most of the criminal defense docket at a small firm on the south side, Michael Brooks Jimenez law firm, which deals majorly in immigration applications. Actually, that's the major, the majority of our clientele are coming in to try to find some way to become legal residents or citizens or defend themselves from deportation proceedings. And so we end up having a kind of a specialized niche of clients that, if they do happen to have some criminal legal issues, they usually have a dual concern in their immigration proceedings, right? So say if someone gets arrested and they don't have legal permission to be here in the United States, if they get processed by a jail, they likely get a ICE hold put on them, which means that they can't bail out.
Right.
Because if they do, they'll just roll over to the immigration custody, which may lead to their deportation. The whole time their criminal case is still proceeding here in the state, which leads to further violations for failure to appear. And so we handle those as delicately as we can, trying to conserve any potential for them to fix their papers and to find a legal permission to be here. And at the same time, find the best resolution for their criminal case.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing work. And I don't want to really put you on the spot, but I'm kind of curious. How successful is that? It in this environment that we have, and it seems like there's always this, it's kind of the boogeyman story that we see from the Republican Party. And they're always pushing back, trying to make things harder and turn that into an evil process. But what do you think your success rate is with getting people citizenship?
Citizenship, I mean, there's certain qualification elements that they must meet. Again, I don't practice most of the immigration process. I do understand it, and so I
Okay.
sometimes help our clients understand it. But we have a pretty great successful rate. I mean, as long as you screen them correctly, and there's multiple different pathways they can take to become legal residents, apply for a residency, and then if they've already been residents for a certain amount of time, they're eligible to apply for their citizenship. So
Sure.
I think we have a great success rate. I think, even in the criminal defense cases, we build solid relationships, and it's been my tutelage under Michael Brooks, who's been my mentor there. He's also a state senator. But he develops relationships everywhere he goes. And so that's kind of been my approach. Every courtroom I go to, I try to make sure I'm a personable interaction for these prosecutors and their staff, the courtroom staff. You're not always going to get your way, but you make the strongest argument you can for your client to make sure, again, that you preserve their potential for finding a legal pathway towards presence here in the United States.
Oh, that's so awesome. So we're going to kind of getting into what I call the meat and potatoes of your candidacy, and really start talking about the key points and topics that you really want to work on. And we've kind of narrowed it down, I think, to 7 major topics that we want to break it down into. And the first one is to talk about, do you know if I say you, I said that wrong. Let me start over again. Do you have a Republican opponent?
Not that I know of. I
Okay.
think, I don't think we have any Republican. There's an independent that filed today, but that I don't think it's a Republican-leaning independent.
Oh, good. So, do you have any dirt, anything on anybody that you want to talk about on that side that maybe, and I say that in the wrong way, but again, it's just the way that I'm kind of phrasing things, because I'm looking for your pathway to become the next senator, and the obstacles that may have been put there, landmines that have been laid by somebody previous who may have been a Republican or an independent, somebody who is radical or not radical, but stuff that you're going to have to try to overcome now to try to get people to vote for you. So do you have anything like that from previous opponents or people that have previously been in that office?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of fortunate in that Senate District 46 has been a pretty much a stronghold for Democrats in Central Oklahoma for a while now, and so I don't know if I have the memory to go far back enough to when there might have been someone who laid those landmines. But I can speak generally to kind of the atmosphere in Oklahoma politics, and I think we kind of all understand, especially as Democrats, that we're in a super minority here.
Okay.
And Republicans can essentially have their way without even talking to Democrats, without even including them in any of the official processes, because they don't necessarily need our votes. And so with that in mind, it's important that we plan for the future of Democrats. We take into understanding that our state, just like the rest of the country, is moving towards a multiracial, multicultural democracy. And we need to plan for that and take advantage of how Democrat policy aligns with that future. Right. And if we engage these communities that we've kind of historically taken for granted, and I'm talking about the Black community, the brown community, the lower income community, young voters,
right?
We kind of think, I think, or at least the establishment of Democrats is kind of taking them for granted in that, well, you don't have no better choice. But that's not enough these days. We don't need to just compare to something else and say we are not that. We need to show them exactly who we are and give them something to vote for and someone that they can believe in to vote for. And so that's kind of been the impetus of my campaign. Is I didn't see that in the field when I announced my candidacy back in September. And I wanted to make sure that a district, like I said, is safe Democrat, is, I think it's fair to say this is a pretty progressive district as well, but it's also young and it's diverse. The average age for voters in Senate District 46 is 33 years old.
Oh, that is young.
So we're pretty young here, and we've got plenty of potential. There's these heavy hitting districts here. You've got the Plaza District, Capitol Hill, where I am, Paseo, Heritage Hills, Mesa Park, Midtown, downtown Oklahoma City, Edgemere Park up on the north side, and then all of Del City, as well as Valley Brook, Crossroads area, Southeast Oklahoma, Crooked Oak, Schuyler, where, neighborhood I lived when I was born, very diverse district. And so it's important that we uh, use this platform in this Senate district that has such diversity, not just, like I said, in terms of race or ethnicity, but in socioeconomic diversity and lived experiences. We need to take advantage of that and really make this the hub of our future as a Democrat Party. And so that's what I intend to do. And I think I'm a great representative for that. And like I said, I didn't see that before I entered the race. And so I'm hoping to take that all the way to the state Senate.
And that's such a great story, and that's such a great commentary of what you were just talking about. If we could just get that one district to increase its voter turnout, and we could actually affect statewide elections, like for
Absolutely.
governor or for superintendent of schools, which has been a complete disaster. But even as much as we I don't know that our current attorney general is, he's got leanings towards MAGA, but at the same time, the previous guy to him was a complete disaster, wanted to completely destroy our legal system. And so we really need to encourage people in Senate District 46 to get out and vote, because
Absolutely.
not only is their vote going to be to support you, but their vote on other issues can really impact a broader base as well, and they can be leaders rather than followers. That's a great commentary. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and we,
another point to make on that, Kevin, if I could, real quick, is
sure.
that Senate District 46 is the only Senate district in Oklahoma that encompasses parts of 3 different congressional districts. So we have CD3, which I'm a part of here in South Oklahoma City. We have CD4 there on the southeast end of it. And we have CD5 in central Oklahoma City. So like you were saying, if we can mobilize voters in this district and get bigger turnout for a Senate race, then when it comes to our congressional district races, we can actually have a say in those. And that's maybe to speak to the kind of the Republican influence on it. They redrew the lines back in 2021 to benefit the Republican Party and to squeeze out Democrats in central Oklahoma. But we can take advantage of that. And now I think we've got 2, maybe even 3 congressional districts in play if we can mobilize our base to get out and vote.
That's great. I'm 100% supportive of that, and I really encourage us and encourage the followers that are listening to this to spread the word, and the spread the word of the good works that Sam is working on and increase voter turnout. That's when we look at our bottom line of Coffee with Democrats, we want to do 2 things. We want to increase voter registration. We want to increase voters at the polls, and we want to elect Democrats. Those are the 3 pillars that we're looking at that we want to work on. We need to talk about the next bullet item that I have here, and that's, our current public teacher crisis. And I've had somebody else that came on here, and they said that literally since 2018, you could see the teachers leaving the state of Oklahoma from the satellite and outer space. There were so many people that were leaving. So from your perspective, talk about the current public teachers crisis.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a mass exodus. And so when I became a teacher, I was emergency certified. Now, I was already working on my alternate certification, but because I didn't study education as an undergraduate degree, I would have needed that alternate certification, or what I eventually got, which was emergency certified. And back then, this was 2016, my first year teaching. I believe we had somewhere around 1,000 emergency certified teachers around the state. Now we're upwards about 4,000, maybe 5,000 teachers a year that we're having to get emergency certified. And so that speaks to the dearth of, educationally qualified people that are in front of our students day in and day out. And I'm not saying these people don't have the heart for it. Obviously, if you're signing up, you've got to have some passion, some interest in educating our future generation. But to know that these people haven't received the pedagogy of education and approaches and learning how to lesson plan, which is something that I struggled with too. And I, having gone with a sociology degree, there's still the practical matter of how to teach that this emergency certification doesn't provide, and that you kind of it's like on the job training, which is kind of a challenging reality to swallow as, someone who's such a big supporter of public education. We want to have the best qualified teacher in front of students in every classroom. And so it's and we've tried certain things. Even in 2018, we passed historic teacher raises, which my argument was that raises for teachers shouldn't be historic events. They should be regular events. We
Right.
should be regularly rewarding them and keeping up with cost of living and inflation. And we haven't been able to do that here. And then making sure, I think there's, the current uh, superintendent administration has passed incentives to get teachers to move back or to get back into the teaching profession with bonuses. And that's had its own problems where they're trying to claw back those funds from teachers who receive them. But at the same time, I just don't think that's going to be a winning strategy. We've really got to develop a holistic environment that is welcoming to teachers, that is not treating them
Absolutely.
as hostile, opponents in the
Right.
classroom. Understand that schools should be places where students feel safe to express themselves, that where parents feel safe to be involved, of course, and that they're welcome to do that. But at the same time, our priority is keeping kids safe and teaching them. And so it's a shame that we've strayed away from that in favor of, political talking points and, certain terms like wokeism that just have nothing to do with how we teach our kids, right? We need to actually get to not just the basics, but the whole student, right? And how do we best approach their educational journey?
Right. Right. Absolutely. We're kind of going to run short on time if we don't move through these next topics fairly quickly, but I do want to touch on the rest of them. The healthcare crisis in Oklahoma, that's part of your platform,
Yeah.
is healthcare. Talk to us a little bit about, what you want to bring to the state of Oklahoma to challenge this healthcare crisis that we have.
Yeah, well, I mean, funding is the number one way to do that. If we increase funding, within at the last round of budget cuts, which I'm guessing was around 2016, we cut a lot of services to rural Oklahoma. And I think that's one area where we really need to re-expand our reach and our support and funding for rural hospitals and rural healthcare. Sorry, that word can be a tongue twister sometimes. But at the same time, providing mental health care access to more
Yeah.
people. I think if we can actually get to a point where Oklahomans are seeking out preventative treatment, preventative resources when it comes to mental health, physical health, that we're going to be saving money in the long term and having just a healthier populace to begin with. If we can convince people of that. And I come from a lower income family that before the Affordable Care Act was passed, we weren't always sure to have health insurance, right? And so you kind of put off seeing a doctor or visiting a health facility when you don't have that insurance. And now we've got kind of a cure for that. But I think we need to back that up with funding and regular access. And we need to be also, again, this ties in with education. We need to be growing our own here in Oklahoma and providing incentives for people to go into the healthcare and mental health care professions.
And brings us to our next topic, which is part of our healthcare crisis in Oklahoma. But that's women's rights and bodily autonomy. Talk to us a little bit about your activism and where you stand on that.
Yes, I think reproductive rights are an incredibly important issue. I think that people who can get pregnant should have the right to bodily autonomy. I think that's the basic right that every human and every person in the United States should be able to expect, right? And then we shouldn't expect our government to be intervening between patients and doctors and telling them what they can and can't access, especially when it comes to how they deal with their own body. And so we've seen since the Dobbs decision a couple of years ago, Oklahoma was already ready, already had laws on the books that were going to go into effect when they were deemed constitutional based on that Supreme Court decision in Dobbs. And so we need to start fighting back to that. And it's going to take, again, an increase in voter turnout and participation, because I think realistically, the best pathway for Oklahomans to regain bodily autonomy and reproductive rights is through a ballot initiative.
Right.
But we need to make sure that we're incredibly well prepared for that and we're ready to take that on, because we see the Republican supermajority continuously try to limit our ability to access ballot initiatives and to be successful in them. And so if we can kind of prepare ourselves for that, I think anytime it's been on the ballot in any other states, conservative states, you think of Kansas, you think of Ohio, I think Oklahoma has the potential to do that, but we need to get ourselves used to turning out. We are 49th or 50th when it comes to voter turnout in Oklahoma, in the whole country. And so that's, I think, where we need to focus our attention. And, kind of the same way we look at rebuilding Democrat prominence in Oklahoma, we need to look at building the structure for a successful ballot initiative to reassert the right to bodily autonomy and reproductive rights in Oklahoma.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. So we've got two more topics, or excuse me, three more topics that we need to move through. But I think we got plenty of time. We've kind of moved through some issues there. Let's talk about Latino issues. You talked about it earlier, and maybe you've talked about everything that you want to talk about that. But is there anything in addition that you want to bring up about, Latino issues that really affect the people in Senate District 46, and how you can help impact that with them?
Yeah, well, we see, it's almost like every decade we have a new anti-immigrant, anti-Latino law that gets proposed and starts making its way through the state legislature. And this year happens to be that year. A fellow friend who's a politician mentioned to me, Republicans, they got all the gun rights they want. They did away with abortion essentially in the state of Oklahoma. What's the next area they're going to move to? This was a couple of years ago, and he predicted it would be immigration. I'm like, oh no. I mean, I felt like we were in a good place with that. But no, that's where they've moved to. And you see Texas with SB4, and then as soon as, that was kind of up in the appeals court and it was paused, our state attorney general and our speaker of the House both made announcements that they would be pursuing legislation in the state of Oklahoma to make it a state crime to be an undocumented immigrant in the state of Oklahoma. And in addition to that, we had two House bills, one of which proposed to limit state funding to any entity that provided a benefit to undocumented folks. And the other one that just, again, made it a crime to be undocumented and then be arrested for some other issue. It made it a felony crime with up to 5 years imprisonment as punishment. So, we have a lot of sentiment that we need to start responding to as a community. And I think it's, maybe one bright side to look at is that this would get our community animated and involved in the political process like it tends to. And so it's an important way for us to get active. It's an important issue for our community here because a lot of us lived in mixed status families. I mean, my mother, before she became a resident and then a citizen through marriage to my father, was an undocumented immigrant here in Oklahoma. And so the fear that those types of proposals instill within our community is something that I think we can convert into motivation and political action. And we've seen the benefits of that. We have a legislative Latino caucus that is putting in work against these bills, and they're fighting behind the scenes. They're building those relationships within the state legislature to make sure that these xenophobic, poorly thought out bills that would really ruin our economy here in the state of Oklahoma because of the economic contributions and cultural contributions of our immigrant community provide for the state. So the more people we can get in there that understand that have that lived experience and direct connection with these immigrant communities and multicultural backgrounds, the better we're going to be able to keep those bills from having any type of negative impact throughout our state.
So I think it's really important for people that are in Senate District 46 to really think about having an attorney judiciary qualification as a legislator to be able to help impact and drive these issues that you're just talking about, not only the cultural issues, the mixed issues, but also to legally combat somebody like this radical white supremacist House of Representative guy. I won't mention his name, but he's from rural Oklahoma. Did not have a Democrat opponent, so I'm going to say he was not elected. He was appointed by his district and then he comes into the Capitol and starts talking about Latinos as criminals and terrorists. And it's such a horrible, horrible commentary. So really talk to us about the attorney judiciary qualification that you think legislators ought to bring to that, and also how that's going to impact the court system.
Yeah. Well, to the first point, I think it's important that we consider constitutionality when we propose bills or allow bills to be proposed. I think that's one of the most unfortunate things about our legislative process is that any legislator can propose whatever they want, no matter what economic impact it'll have on our state, no matter what moral impact it would have, cultural impact, or constitutional impact. And it could lead to not just a negative financial impact because of how it would affect business here in Oklahoma, but it could lead to a financial burden because we have to spend taxpayer dollars to defend against these unconstitutional laws if they are passed and then challenged in court, which is more than likely to happen given the types of laws that get proposed here in Oklahoma by the Republican side. But there's also been a perennial move to switch up the way that Oklahoma appoints its appellate judges, and that's through the Judicial Nominating Commission, which is our current system. It's a great system. It was enacted in the 1960s after there was a wave of corruption where essentially Supreme Court justices, appellate justices were having their decisions bought and paid for by, special interests. And so in the wake of that, we came up with a Judicial Nominating Commission, which has served its purpose well. And it includes non-lawyers on the commission to help vet and appoint candidates for judiciary that would then get approved by the governor and, and by the Senate. And so the current move has then been to get rid of the Judicial Nominating Commission and make it a straight appointment with Senate approval, right? A state appointment by the governor with Senate approval, which I think it leads to more partisanship in our judiciary. Our judiciary is meant to be an individual, independent branch of government that can check the other two branches of government here in the state. And so to make that more of a political branch, I think is a huge mistake. And it's necessary that we have people who understand that, who have, a legal education or legal understanding enough to see the damage that type of move could cause.
And it's such every single time I ask you a question or bring up a topic, I'm so impressed, absolutely impressed with the professionalism and with the way that you are able to convey that back. The messaging that you have is just so perfect, and I can't speak highly enough about your candidacy and how people should get behind you. We've got to talk about one more thing. And I think this is a topic that I need to start talking with every single person that comes on Coffee with Democrats, and that's planning for the Democrats in the future for the state of Oklahoma. What is your vision for that? How do you think we need to change what's taking place and how to improve, the prospects, and not only just the prospects, but the whole ideology and thought process of what it's like being a Democrat in the state of Oklahoma?
Yeah, well, I think the one word that comes to mind is engagement, is engaging our community. We can't forget that they're the reason that we have the opportunity to run for these races, to get elected to these positions. And I think Democrats, as proud of a Democrat as I am, on a national level, even on a state level, I think we've kind of dropped the ball when it comes to engaging these communities that in certain ways we've taken for granted. I think I touched on this earlier. We expect that they don't have a better choice, especially when it comes to my community, the Latino community. We kind of bank on the issue of immigration being the deciding factor for these people. And so because Republicans are against immigration and Democrats are generally for it, we take that vote for granted. We take that engagement for granted, but it's just not enough. And we see signs of that in areas like Southern Texas, where you have second and third generation children of immigrants, grandchildren of immigrants, who immigration isn't the most important thing to them, and it's not going to be going through the future. That there's other real life, everyday life issues that they have to deal with. There's the economy, there's education, there's public services, infrastructure that they want to make sure that they can have an input on. And so we need to be engaging them and listening to what their issues are. And I don't even claim to speak for my community as a whole, but I'm just one member of it. But my approach to running this race, to engaging politically, has been to knock doors, to attend community events, to understand what are the issues important to my community members. I think I have a good track record with that and experience, having been a teacher. I'm not an authoritative teacher. I want to listen to my students and see what they want to learn. I want to listen to constituents in Senate District 46 and see what their issues are, what they want to prioritize when it comes to the state legislature. But yeah, we're going to have to plan for that future by doing that. We're going to have to engage these communities that have been forgotten. I can't tell you the number of doors I've knocked in South Oklahoma City on the east side of I-35, where I knock a door and they've never had anybody knock their door before for a political race. And they're excited to be able to speak to somebody and have someone listen to them, right? And that's a powerful experience to have, not just for them, but for me. I I'm incredibly honored to be that first person to speak with them, to be interested in what their concerns are when it comes to our state legislator. So we have to have a long-term plan to engage those people on a regular basis, not just when it comes to election cycles, not just when it comes to our own elections. We need to be out there in other areas. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here in South Oklahoma City. We're seeing a movement, number one, to engage more Latinos in our electorate. And we do that by providing quality candidates that they can believe in and that they can relate to. And I think we can do that in every community, every subsect of our community, and create this unified movement that really engages people to participate, to give input into the Democrat platform, and so that they have that buy-in and can believe in it. And so they're not just going to participate in one election to vote for one person, but that person they elected is going to let them know, bring them along for the process, give them access, and let them know we've got these other races going on. We have these other issues that we need to get involved in. This is how it impacts you.
Well, here's the one thing that I think we need to really talk about next. This is going to be a big issue. Bear with me as I go through this process. I have to bring up a share screen on here, but people really need to pay attention to this one right here. Sam can't do all this on his own. He needs your help. In order to do this, we need for you to go to this website that we're showing on the screen right now. And that screen is let's work with Sam and let's get him elected. And the best way to do that is through his Act Blue process. And just go down here and again, his Act Blue, it's kind of a long, convoluted name that's on there, but it's very simple. Just go to Sam for OK, and then go to donate. And then you can go down here, and something as simple as $10, as easy as a cup of coffee, if we can just make those donations and get to him, will have a great impact on his ability to be your next senator for the great state of Oklahoma, representing you in the state of Oklahoma. So please make sure that you come down here and you do the donate. It's so important. We've got to make sure that we do that. So I'm going to stop sharing that and we'll get back to Sam. But again, we can't do this without having people and helping contribute. And even if they can't make a $10 contribution, if they can make, $5, whatever the case is, just do everything we can as people to help Sam and his campaign, because Sam is going to be a great, great representative for the voice of the people of the Senate District 46. So I have one last thing, and we need to be in a hurry because we need to close this down so you can go to your next appointment. But we really need to give you an opportunity to give your best speech as to why people should vote for you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. It's been a pleasure being here. So again, check out the website. You can find the donation link there, samforok.com. We also invite you to volunteer with us. Our next day of action is April 13th, Saturday. We'll be meeting at the Michael Brooks Jimenez law offices on South 56th and Western. So please come join us. Even if you don't like to knock, you can drive knockers around. So I am running for the seat to give representative leadership to Senate District 46. Now, this is the most diverse district in the state Senate. It's one of the most youngest districts, and I think it's one of the safest Democrat districts. And it's important for us to take control of this in a powerful way so that we can plan for the long term of Democrats in Oklahoma. This seat would allow me 12 years to help swing that pendulum a little back towards the left. And beyond that, it would provide us the opportunity to engage more people in the process so that we can have a long-term impact, not just in this Senate district, but in our congressional districts and statewide races. And so I hope that I can count on your support to help me along this path. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for coming on Coffee with Democrats and being with us. Sam, we wish you the best. You are a great candidate. You're a great representative of Senate District 46, and we really support you in everything that you do. And even when you become our next senator for Senate District 46, we want to engage with you on some of the major issues that you're dealing with while you're in the Senate. I'm saying that because I'm positive. I am positive that you are going to be the next senator. And but we can't stop there. We've got to get people out the door and to the polls and get the vote. There's going to be three ways to do that. Three ways, folks. Listen to me. You can vote early during the early voting process. You can vote by mail through the absentee process. That takes a little bit of an effort because you have to sign up through the election office and get your absentee ballot. You have to fill it out. You have to properly put it into all of the envelopes, but you also have to get it notarized. In the state of Oklahoma, we're draconian in our efforts. We have to make sure that it's notarized, but that is free of charge. So if you go to the bank, if you go by one of the some stores, even by the election office, there are notaries that will get that done. And I'm sure that Sammy's even has somebody in his office where he works that's a notary that can take care of that for you. Absolutely. And then the other one, the most important one, the day of the polls, get out and vote. GOTV. And have a plan to do that. Have a plan to bring a neighbor. Have a plan to bring a friend or a family member to vote, because we can't do this by sitting around watching television. We've got to get up and actually do something. So great having you on Coffee with Democrats. Thanks so much for sharing your great story. What a wonderful story it is. So again, thank you so much, Sam. We appreciate you, and everyone. Until the next time we're on Coffee with Democrats, please be safe.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's make sure we get out on June 18th to vote for Sam Wargin Grimaldo. Thank you.
Thank you.